Yeah, welcome back to another episode of the Format Podcast. And we got a pretty interesting show for you here today, and it's the gift that keeps on giving, LeBron James and his new partnership. So we'll get to that in just a second. But if you're here on YouTube and you haven't already, you know what time it is. Please go ahead, click that subscribe, that like, that notification bell. Make sure you're kept up to date whenever we drop new content on the channel. If you want your audio-only version of the podcast, open up your audio podcast platform, hit the search bar, type in the Format podcast, and we should come right up. If you're enjoying the content, make sure you give us that like and that 5-star review and drop us a comment. All that stuff helps us rise in the algorithm, helps us find more sports fans, helps more sports fans find us. And by the way, don't forget, set it in your phone, put it on your calendar, do whatever you got to do to remember. Saturday nights at 7 p.m. the Format Podcast is live. Sometimes I'll have guests, sometimes I won't. I'll be talking all different things in the world of sports, so make sure you tune in for that. All right, here we go. So, LeBron James. Like I said, the gift that keeps on giving. If you're talking basketball, and right now is prime basketball season, and who is the biggest name in the NBA, and who is the face of the NBA? LeBron James, of course. So we know what an incredible player LeBron James has been throughout his career. Now, I can say that without saying that he's the GOAT, because I don't believe he's the GOAT. I can say that without saying I believe he's an all-time top five player, because I don't believe he's an all-time top 5 player. That doesn't mean that he's not an all-time great player, because there's been a whole lot of players that have played in the NBA over the past 75 years, and he's done a lot of things. So kudos to him. Shouts to LeBron. Great career. He's done a lot of things no one else has ever done. Got it. That doesn't mean he has to be the GOAT. That said, I've talked ad nauseum about how much I am amazed at the way that throughout his career, he has been able to control the narrative. And when I say control the narrative, I mean control the way people talk about him, the way he is perceived. And he does a really good job of that for the most part, right? To the point that even myself as a media member, a lot of times I sit back and I marvel at the way this guy can absolutely control the media. If you watch the show I recently did with my man Eugene, we talked about Dr. J and Dr. J not having him in his all-time top 5. And Dr. J, he said that on a podcast where he was being interviewed by NBA media member Chris Haynes. And one of the things that stood out to me was when Dr. J was talking about how LeBron built these super teams, Chris Haynes said, and this is not an exact quote, but he said something to the lines of, well, LeBron would say, and I know he's probably going to come back to me on this. So I'm like, you're doing the interview and you're talking about him, but you're afraid of what he's going to say if you don't handle the interview to defend him the right way. Like, that's crazy to me. But, I mean, it is what it is, right? So anyway, getting to it, LeBron James has done a marvelous job of controlling the media narrative. You got guys like Shannon Sharp. You got guys like Nick Wright out there who will go to war. Kendrick Perkins arguing on live TV, a grown man, about how long he's been on the LeBron James hype train. I mean, it's wild. And of course, you have the Clutch Sports, who obviously is LeBron's. Well, not LeBron's technically, Rich Paul, LeBron's guy. That's his agency. And obviously they do a great job of pushing the narrative when it comes to LeBron James every opportunity they get. So it's, like I said, this is a guy that has done a masterful, and I'm not being facetious when I say it, an absolutely masterful job of trying to control every bit of how he is perceived out there throughout the duration of his adult life and career. And so, you know, it's obviously played pretty well for him, because this is a guy who hasn't even finished playing basketball yet, and he's a billionaire, and all the other things we talked about in terms of the perception of him. Now, we have another guy, JJ Redick, who is a longtime former NBA player, probably arguably one of the better college basketball players of all time. And obviously he was a Dookie. He played for Duke. So that right there, just having that on your chest helps you a lot in terms of brand. And then, you know, the type of player that he was, Wooden Award winner, player of the year, all that good stuff. So JJ Redick, long NBA career, outstanding shooter, really quality role player, smart guy in terms of knowing the game for the most part. But now he's a member of the NBA media. And one of the things that gets me with JJ Redick is he is super pro player, maybe to a fault, but obviously he's a player, and he is super pro player of the modern generation to a fault that he doesn't give the past generations their due, and he won't acknowledge some of the what's the word I'm looking for? He won't acknowledge some of the deficits of the modern player in the modern NBA game, but it is what it is. That's his era, so you would expect that he would defend that. But this is interesting because LeBron James and JJ Redick, again, LeBron being one of the most amazing players we've ever seen, and this is him the other night against the Golden State Warriors at age 39. He had 40 points, and he tends to show up in big games. That is one thing I can say about him for the majority of his career. And this was a nationally televised game. He got busy. He had 40 points, and he did his thing. And then we're going to see here JJ Redick during his career, doing his thing as well. The guy was an outstanding shooter. He's a guy who maximized his NBA career. Not super athletic for an NBA player, but really could shoot the ball, attempted to defend. So I'll give him a lot of credit for that. But then again, you can't play 4 years for Coach K and not attempt to defend, right? But JJ Redick, really solid NBA basketball player for a long time. And the guy knows the game. You hear him talk about it. His knowledge of the game is really astute. And why am I talking about JJ Redick and LeBron James together? Why? Because it's just been released today that JJ Redick and LeBron James will be releasing a new podcast together. Yeah, that's crazy, right? And why I'm so amazed about this, I guess I shouldn't be amazed, but what is interesting to me, remember one of the first things I said is that LeBron is an absolute genius. He is masterful when it comes to controlling the narrative, right? And he knows that JJ Redick is one of the bigger voices in the NBA sports realm, in the NBA media realm. And of course, LeBron James is right now the biggest voice in the game and the face of the game, the face of the league. So why not get those two together? We know that JJ Redick is a guy who always defends LeBron James in these arguments, probably not to the extent of like a Shannon Sharp or a Kendrick Perkins, but he's very much a LeBron defender. And so you get these guys together and they will continue to push the narrative. What? The narrative of this era being the best, the narrative of LeBron James being the best of all time. And according to the press release, this show is going to be focusing purely on basketball. And I think that's so interesting because, again, maybe I am just a guy who is a pessimistic. I'm not seeing this in a positive light, but I'm seeing this as just another way for LeBron, one, to stay in the limelight as he's likely not going to win any more championships, and two, to continue to, as I said, push that narrative that he's the greatest of all time. And what's the easiest way to do that? Utilize technology, utilize the voice you have, push that all over the world, because when Michael Jordan was playing, this stuff didn't exist yet. And so LeBron James, again, has done a tremendous job of working that. And so I always talk about, and I get called a hater for this, but I always make it a point to talk about the way he utilizes media and the way he is such an attention seeker. He always has to stay in the limelight. And he is truly a believer. It's obvious of there's no such thing as bad publicity. And so he has taken that to the nth degree. And he has utilized that, and he has, again, worked that to become a billionaire and to have the social media presence and the media presence in general over that. And so we know that LeBron James has his own media company. I don't know if Spring Hill is going to be involved in doing this show. It would only make sense that they would be. But yeah, LeBron has his own media company, so he knows that part of the business inside out, right? And so what we're hearing, what is supposed to be, is that the show is going to be purely basketball focused. Now, I'm curious to know, when they say purely basketball focused, are we going to see more X's and O's? Are we going to see more actually player breakdowns, kind of something along the lines of like what they did with Detail when Kobe Bryant was really breaking that stuff down and showing a lot of footage and, stopping and rewinding and highlighting and showing all the stuff that, us laymen who never played at a high level would truly be aware of without someone to explain it to us, maybe almost from a coach's level. I don't know. I think LeBron is probably too smart to let the show get to that point. Maybe there'll be a little bit of that because that seems to be JJ Redick's wheelhouse and his particular niche. But LeBron is too smart for that because he knows the average fan is not doesn't know that, doesn't understand that, and really doesn't care about that. So he may be doing a little bit of it, but I don't see it getting to that point. So this is just so interesting. This is another opportunity for LeBron to do what he does, and it's brilliant. It is brilliant because I think most people, as I've said, Michael Jordan is widely regarded as the greatest player of all time. A poll last year has, I want to say, 58% of active NBA players still feeling that Michael Jordan is the greatest player of all time. But as we see time go on, that gap is shrinking and that number is changing. And so LeBron is saying, listen, Michael Jordan, he doesn't talk a lot. He's not a very public dude. He did what he did and he's resting on that. But LeBron is saying, what is the expression? Out of sight, out of mind. And he really is going to capitalize on that by not allowing himself to become out of sight. Even when he's done playing, he's not going to be out of sight because he's made it plain from the beginning that one of the things he's interested in is becoming an owner. So if he becomes an owner, I can see him almost being like the Jerry Jones of the NBA. I can kind of see that. Always still being in the limelight, always still looking for the camera, having a lot to say, and wanting to be the face of the franchise rather than his star player. And now I don't have anything to go on when I say that. I just get the feeling based on what he's shown us over the last, 20-something years, that's the type of owner that he's going to be. And we can rest assured that he will be an owner. There's no way that the NBA is not going to allow him to become an owner. And it's probably going to be a franchise in Vegas, which, again, another brilliant move, both for LeBron James and for the NBA. Smart. So, yeah, this is super, super interesting. Oh, and the other thing I wanted to point out before I get out of here is that, so are we sure that, and this is something that I hear Rob Parker on The Odd Couple with Chris Broussard always talk about. Now, Rob Parker, if you don't know him, he's a longtime outstanding journalist. He's been a writer for many, many years. He's been on radio. He's been on TV, on different networks, et cetera, et cetera. So he's actually a journalism professor. He's got a master's in journalism from Columbia University, et cetera, et cetera. The accolades go on. And one of the things that he says, and it drives him crazy about athlete-driven podcasts, is that often it's a situation where there's no pushback. Like these guys just say whatever they want to say and everybody just agrees with them. Yeah, you're right. And so I'm interested, and since Rob Parker said that, that's something I've been noticed on athlete-focused podcasts. And now I'm interested in possibly watching this show and seeing if LeBron says something that most sensible people would deem to be insane, because LeBron often says very interesting things that don't make a lot of sense or don't match up with other things that he said previously. But, that is what it is. I actually have a show on the channel called LeBron Keeps Saying Things That Don't Make Sense. But anyway, I'm curious to see, is JJ Redick going to have the stones to push back on LeBron and say, hey, well, LeBron, that's not what you said before. Explain that. Or LeBron, I don't agree with that. Or LeBron, that doesn't really make sense. Or LeBron, there's a lot of people who wouldn't agree with what you're saying right now. Is he going to be able to push back? Because if it's just those two and there's not maybe a journalist or someone else who is kind of outside their realm to be able to maybe moderate it and direct the thing and, like I said, push back when one or both of these guys say things that maybe don't make a whole lot of sense, it's just going to be, a couple of guys sitting there agreeing with each other on everything, even when maybe something is kind of outlandish, and that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. So I am anxious to see, are we going to have an opportunity? Is there going to be someone there who's going to give some pushback and lend a little bit of realism to this show? But otherwise, man, again, beautiful move by LeBron. Really, applause, LeBron. Yeah, I'm dead serious. LeBron is doing what LeBron does. Again, masterful. And I'm not joking at all when I say it. He is absolutely brilliant when it comes to controlling the narrative and controlling the media and putting all the spin to make things appear how he wants them to appear and make himself perceived how he wants to be perceived. So what I want to know from you, are you anxious to see this new LeBron James, JJ Redick podcast collaboration? What do you think is his end game? And leave your comments in the comment section. Can't wait to hear from you. Look forward to you continuing to consume the podcast. Thank you for helping the channel grow. And also make sure you're checking in with us Saturday night at 7 p.m. Put it on your calendar, put it on your phone, set the alarm, whatever. Make sure you tell your friends who are other sports fans too. Can't wait to get back with you. And I'm out. Peace.